open this Audit and Risk Committee meeting and call for apologies. I think we'll call for apologies for His Worship the Mayor for lateness. Do we have any other apologies?
Yeah, just for Te Aroha.
Oh, Te Aroha, thank you very much. Yes, she's busy walking.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to move. Do I have a seconder?
Yes.
I think I saw Chris's hand first. Thank you, Chris. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, carried. We've got no open presentations. Okay, we've got our confirmation of our minutes, page 6. Do I have a mover for that, please?
Yes, Brown.
Thank you, Brownie. Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Chris. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those against, carried. Our reports, first item, page 11, our Mercer report. Welcome, Garth, and you can introduce and speak to your report.
Yeah, I'll let Priya talk to it, to the quarterly, and then I'll probably do a little bit of an update on recent market movements as well, because there has been quite a lot happened in April.
Welcome, Priya.
Hi, thank you. So the overall return for the fund for the March quarter was negative 4.7%. 0.3 behind the benchmark.
Hello.
Over the 10-year period, the investment return after inflation and fees was 7.1, which is well ahead of the target of 4%. The managers which outperformed the benchmark were Nico, First Sentier and Wellington Global Bond. And managers which underperformed the benchmark were ANZ Global Equities and Mercer Global Equities. This is a reflection of a volatile start to 2022 in the global markets, with a number of headwinds such as high inflation, prospect of sharp rises in interest rates, and uncertainty over the impact of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. And in terms of different sectors, Trans-Tasman equities had a tough start to the year. OCR hikes towards the end of last year and high inflation pushed New Zealand equities lower in January, and Australian equities did perform slightly better than New Zealand equities over the quarter. Global equities sector was driven by poor earnings sentiment, Omicron disruptions and consistent hawkish views from the Fed. And of course, volatility increased with the Russia and Ukraine conflict. New Zealand bonds struggled in the first quarter as a signal of further interest rate hikes throughout 2022 placed downward pressure on New Zealand bonds, and global bonds are in a similar situation with signals of rising interest rates to combat high inflation, putting pressure on that as well. And the commodities sector was one of the strongest performing sectors in the quarter, with sharp increases in oil, gas, wheat, and palladium, and that's also as a result of the Russia and Ukraine conflict. And there were a couple of small changes in regards to the manager research views, in which LSV Asset Management's ESG rating was upgraded from ESG 4 to ESG 3, and Principal Global Investors ESG rating was upgraded from ESG 3 to ESG 2. And I'll hand over to Garth now.
Yeah, so that's a summary of the quarter, and given what we've seen, I mean, the numbers for April are not flattering at this stage. I haven't seen the official stuff, but what we saw was the general market sell-off in April. So the Nasdaq, which is the tech global index in the US, was actually down 13.3%. The S&P 500, which is the one I watch mostly, was also down 8.8%, and also global bonds got sold off heavily as well. And one of my clients sent me an email and she asked me, you know, what are your expectations for the next 12 months? Because they do a budgeting process as well. And I looked at all the factors that are driving markets as well. And as Priya talked about, there's really 3 factors, and they're all kind of interrelated. Obviously, inflation is running really, really hot, 6.9% in New Zealand, but it's actually 8.5% in the US as well. And what that means from a central bank point of view is they're going to have to raise interest rates very aggressively to get on top of inflation. The Federal Reserve has indicated they're going to raise interest rates at least 7 or 8 times this year as well, and there's a strong likelihood of a 50 basis point rise at their next meeting, which I believe is in the next day or two. There's also the Russian-Ukrainian situation as well, and it's pushing up commodity prices. The EU is very dependent on natural gas. Some of the European companies are completely dependent on gas, but we've also seen rises in oil, palladium, nickel, and also wheat as well. And I read recently that New Zealand's actually had to go offshore to get wheat from Australia as well. So all those commodity rises are going to push inflationary pressures up on a global scale as well. And the other thing that I've been thinking about quite a bit lately is China. So China has a zero COVID policy, and they're sticking to it for as long as they can. The reason they're sticking to that zero COVID policy is that they have gone with the Chinese vaccine, which is not as effective or efficient or as good as the Pfizers and the Modernas as well. And there's also some reticence, particularly among the elderly population, to get vaccinated. So up to 345 Chinese that are either in full lockdown or partial lockdown, including which is the Shanghai as well. So Shanghai is the Chinese business hub, and it's also home to the world's largest port. I've been reading that some of the global international companies like Apple that are based in China are also warning investors about some, possibly factory shutdowns, but also supply chain issues as well. So all those factors and all that uncertainty have meant that investors have been very risk averse and have actually been moving their money out of global equities. Interestingly enough, Warren Buffett, who's one of the best known value investors, has actually been moving the other ways and has started investing into companies that he sees where he sees good value as well. So April is going to be quite a negative month, I suspect, for the long-term investment fund. And we really expect, we just had our team meeting, one of the outcomes out of that was that we do expect that it's going to be a very challenging 2022 as long as this uncertainty kind of isn't going to dissipate in a hurry as well. So is there any questions or thoughts in regards to that as well?
Thank you for that, Garth. Yes, I think we've actually got lots of uncertainty. Andy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah. I can understand how the markets are lower, but we didn't even make benchmark, and we're paying a premium for our managers, so that we can at least get that serious. Is that a concern?
Yeah, that's a good point, Andy. I attended a meeting through Harbour Asset Management, and T. Rowe Price presented, and they are part of the Harbour Asset Management one as well. And the guy that was on the call, he's been a trader for 40 years, and he said the first 6 weeks of this year were the most difficult trading conditions he's ever experienced. You had stocks moving up, down. You had like Netflix losing 30% in one day. You had some stocks, down that much, but also going the other way as well. So when markets are moving quite quickly and there's a lot of volatility, it makes it kind of hard for particularly the global equity managers to manage all their stocks in the portfolio. The one when I look through your portfolio, the area where there has been some underperformance, particularly in regards to ANZ, global and equities, they've gone through a long period where they've actually outperformed the benchmark by 2.5% over a long term. Over the last 12 months, they didn't, which is unfortunate, but we can sort of understand the rationale. We just had our team meeting, and within Mercer's overseas shares funds as well, one of their managers is Bailey Gifford, and it was actually 30% behind the benchmark. So within the global equities in particular, we are seeing quite a lot of dispersion in results, but not totally unexpected given just the volatility within the marketplace. So I hope that helps, Andy.
Yeah, it's just something we have to keep an eye on, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, perfectly understandable. When everything's going okay, honky-dory, managers to sitting down and they're looking long term, but in the short term, it's just that whipsawing in the marketplace.
Welcome there, Phil. You're on mute.
Thank you, Chair Phil, and apologies for being late to the meeting. Yeah, obviously disappointing to see that we're 3% behind benchmark, but obviously is certainly hard trading times at the moment. Do we actually have figures of where we are sitting at the moment as to the LTIF?
Page 23 of the agenda, I think, talks about the figure. Is that as of end of March? That's page 10 of your report, Garth.
Yeah, we've only got March numbers in there, so we don't actually have. It's just too early to get the April numbers. It's usually 3 or 4 business days after the month end before we get the numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Honestly, Phil, I expect it to be rather negative, given that both global equities and bonds have been sold down quite heavily. I just don't know the magnitude of the sell down here.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Garth? Okay, all right. Oh, Vipul, you got a comment? Welcome, Vipul.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil. To you, Mr. Chair. Garth, I know you said the market is going to be volatile remaining of the 2022, but what's the next 2 months going to be?
I got a question from a client asking me about my crystal ball. Well, you know, April's been negative, but I know you're thinking towards what May, June's going to look like for the financial year and to the for the long-term investment fund. To be honest, I really don't know, to be perfectly honest. I mean, in the short term, I'd like to think it could be positive. You know, we talked to our market and our team, our capital market team in Australia quite recently, and they've actually adjusted their market aware assumptions post the sell-off. So they are in the short term thinking that we may have seen the worst of the sell-off. And that markets may settle down. I'm certainly hoping so, Vipul, but no money back guarantees.
So my second question was going to be, are we at the bottom yet?
Yeah. I remember in 2020 when when we went into lockdown, and I remember telling someone, asking me, well, when's the bottom of the market? And so it's kind of like catching falling knives. You don't know when you're at the bottom until you come out the other side. But it's also worth noting, Vipul, on a more serious note, is that in 2020 we saw central banks and also governments, come to the party and pump a lot of money into the system. It's not going to happen this time around because it's actually in reverse. So central banks are they're having to increase interest rates to tackle inflation. So I don't think we're going to see a strong recovery like we saw in 2020, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think it is my personal view as well that I think the markets have priced in a lot of inflation and interest rates already. So I'd
like to think we perhaps are. It's hard to see. Man, the US 10-year bond yields at just over 3%. It's hard. I'm hoping that we've priced in most of that already. So most damage has already been done.
And I haven't heard recently someone talking about inflation being transitory as well. So
no, that was a 2021 story, and it was amazing. We had a manager, 6 managers in the office, one of my clients, and every one of them mentioned transitory inflation, and they turned out to be all exactly wrong.
Cool. Thanks, Garth.
Yeah, no worries, Vipul. Good to see you back on deck, Vipul.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Yeah, I think, Garth, you've highlighted, I think we've almost got not quite a perfect storm, but pretty close. We've got the China lockdown, and I don't know how long that's going to last for. China will hold out for, I think, as long as they possibly can. So we've probably got another month to 6 weeks at least of that happening. And then, of course, we've got the war in Ukraine, and some commentators are talking that could be a 5-year conflict. So, those two alone, plus the inflation, it's going to be a long haul. I think what my prediction And I've got a little saying: those who live by the crystal ball tend to eat ground glass. To me, it's going to be flat at best for quite some time. We're not going to see the growth that the bounce back that we had in 2020. So all I'm pleased to see is we've actually got a reasonable amount in our investment fluctuation reserve. But I agree with Andy, we need to keep the pressure on our team to make sure they're giving us the best value that we're paying for.
Yeah, I completely agree with that as well.
And I think maybe we can talk a bit more about the crystal ball later in the meeting, but I think it's a hard gig at the moment.
Yeah, I mean that investment fluctuation reserve, I mean it's still at 20 or 22.9 or 23 million as well. And I think the reason we do have that in place is that, you know, we do have rainy days in investment markets. We know that markets don't always go up, and the idea is that when you have a run of good years is that you build up your kitty, so to speak, and it provides a bit of buffer going forward as well. So we're actually having rainy days at the moment.
I would say it's almost pouring actually, but that's fine. That's beside the. We're in Gisborne and we've got another flood.
Okay, yeah, you're probably right.
Right. Any other comments, questions on the Mercer report? So if we go back to page 11, we've got a recommendation there. Can I have a mover for that, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Andy. Seconded.
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Feld. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried.
Aye.
All right. Our next item is our quarterly financial report on page 30. So is this Garry or Vipul? I suppose it's actually Gary's written the report. So Garry, floor is yours.
Yeah, good morning through the chair. Yeah, I think the only thing I need to add to the cover report there is that within these financials, I've cut the return, the forecast return from LTIF by 4 million. But listening to Garth this morning, I think that's still optimistic. So bear in mind that there is 4 million return in the forecast in the financials. But I think it should actually come down a lot further than that. So that's just something to bear in mind in the financials. But other than that, I think the cover report talks to the financials. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm quite happy to take them.
Okay. We'll deal with the financials. Andy, question?
Yeah, our debt profile and our forecast of borrowing, that was, I think at the last meeting was asked for. I didn't see it in this agenda. Do we have that?
Apologies, Andy. No, we don't have that at this stage. I can produce it for the next meeting. I overlooked that one. Apologies.
Can I make a suggestion here? Maybe we, if you finish that, Garry, with the acting chief executive's clearance, we actually circulate that to the members prior to as soon as you can do it, and then do another one for the next meeting.
Yeah, that's no problem. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks.
Philip, just sorry, Mr. Chair. Can you just ask that question again, Andy? What you were after?
Just we usually get a graph saying we're borrowing money out to
True.
Yes.
Yeah.
The treasury position.
Yeah, treasury position and the rate we're paying.
Cool. All right, no worries. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Phil.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few questions. Page 53, regulatory services, building control. We have spent a lot on contractors due to the processing. If we're talking 190,000, we're also looking at a lot of development going on in the district ongoing. should we be looking at staffing there rather than contractors? Because that amount would have paid a hell of a lot of wages. Is there a comment on that, please?
Liam, could you cover that one?
Happy to, Garry. Thanks, Your Worship, and through the chair. I guess that the spending there covered a number of phases where we were recruiting, as well as using contractors to just pick up on spikes in consent volumes. At the moment, we're at full complement. We've got 5 staff at the moment, 1 undergoing training, but sort of inputting to the processing work. So I'd be reluctant to go out to the marketplace again in that space. I'm sort of reasonably satisfied that we've got the right balance of in-house expertise and contractors when we need them. I think it's probably worth adding that this current quarter, we have seen a decline in, I guess, the need for contracted services. But yeah, we'll just keep my recommendation would be just to keep a watching brief on that. It's a very tight marketplace, so it's not one I like to venture into, you know, just at the moment, because it's there's not that many people out there with the full skills. We're sort of signing up to training and increasing competencies in that space. So that's a long game. Contractors provide a more immediate short-term fix. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. That does cover it where you've already got some in place, so hopefully we're going to see that drop. Chair, page 57 under solid waste.
Can I just stop there? I just got a supplementary question on that rather than actually circling back. No. The question I have is, if we end up with a deficit for that particular activity, maybe it's a question for Garry / Vipul, how do we actually, have we actually got a fund we can fund that from, or does that deficit come out of rates?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Garry, if you, I don't know if you go ahead, Garry.
You want to cover that, Vipul? Yeah.
Yep. So if it's a significant amount, Phil, then we'll keep a track of it, and next year we'll rate some more.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Carry on. Sorry, just I thought it would, rather than circle back, Mayor Phil,
no,
we did.
Absolutely. So the solid waste, obviously, income and expenditure is high because of high volumes, which to me is a real concern. I think we were heading a fairly good way with recycling and that, and I'm talking this probably on a national as well as a district basis, and COVID has certainly upset people's good habits of recycling. Hopefully our upcoming strategy on composting and use of a lot of stuff will certainly help that, but I'm really concerned that what we're sending to waste is certainly increasing. So I've got a concern there. The stormwater, so page 59 and page 63, stormwater and urban water supply. What is the story with the business park, with the hold up of financial contributions there, and where are they at?
Looks like I'll take that one because nobody else is taking the mute on. So a lot of it was that when we were doing the long-term plan, we were budgeting to, as best as we could at the stage on the information we had around the timing of when businesses would develop in the business park and therefore pay financial contributions. So we just aren't at the point where we're securing financial contributions towards it yet.
Okay.
But we, at the time, we budgeted to be doing that, but it's just because of the timing around when the infrastructure is going in, we haven't got any financial contributions coming in yet. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And from what I see of what's happening there, that won't be far away though, because there is certainly a lot of development going on.
yes, that's correct. There is a lot of development going on.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That's it from me on financials.
Thank you. If I just want to circle back to your comment on solid waste, I'm seeing this trend across the country, and part of the problem is with the increased number of building consents. Unfortunately, builders created quite a lot of waste, which goes straight to landfill, unfortunately, and I was a guilty party in 2020. So to me, one of the strategies I think collectively we need to make across the sector is to actually encourage recycling of building products from the building site. Andy, you've got your hand up.
Just I've got 2 or 3 things. One, we did a building construction a wee while ago, and we recycled all the wood. I got some young fellas to come in and cut it all out, and because it was an old building, it had native timber, so we managed to recycle 90% of that, where the builder was just going to take it all to the dump. So that's just aside. I agree with Liam. It seems to be working at the moment with the contractors. The last thing we want is staff that are inexperienced in that area. It's a very, very difficult area, and they have to have a lot of knowledge. So I believe we're on the Liam's on the right track in that area. Now the financials is what we're supposed to be talking about. Page 65, and we're looking at item 22071, boat ramp. Dear to my heart. The variance is 3,672%. Just wondered, is that a mistake?
Trying to see it on the screen.
So that is because there is no budget allocated to that project. And so the PJ was just created so that they could start doing some of the work around the design, but it's being externally funded through the Harbour Endowment Fund and the contribution from the boating club. So the percentage looks weird, but it's just because there was no budget allocated to it.
Okay, no trouble.
A conflict of interest there, Councillor.
Hopefully on Saturday, Your Worship. Yeah, with a bit of luck.
I didn't ask for conflict of interest. The issue is, of course, we're not making any decisions on the boat ramp, so I don't actually perceive a conflict of interest. Otherwise, I might have to declare one as well.
Yeah, Brownie, what's the sea like at Ahawi?
Andy,
Right.
you should be out fishing.
Right. Okay.
No, that's all I got. Sorry.
Right. Anything else on the financials? Okay. Non-financials. Are there any questions on the non-financials?
Through you, Chair, I might have a few in the next quarter.
Okay. Right, so there are no questions on the financials. So if we go back to page 30, we've got a recommendation there that we receive the third quarter financial and non-financial performance. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Chris. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Brown.
Thank you. All those in favour? Aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried.
Aye.
Items for action. We're racing through the agenda, page 107. Just noting that. Marianne, do you want to make comment on this one?
Yes, through the chair, just as it says, the legal and procurement manager has started working. He's going great guns already, and we expect to bring through a plan soon. Would you like this taken off as an item for action, or you want us to bring a timeline for the review and implementation?
The latter. So if you bring that timeline through, then I'm actually happy to take it off.
Yeah.
Don't know how the other members feel, but that would be my preference.
Yeah.
All right, I'm getting thumbs up from a couple of people.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Information reports. Thank you for that, Marianne. Oh, it'd be nice to meet at our next meeting that we're in person. It'd be nice to meet our legal and procurement manager.
To meet Andrew?
Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you. Our next item is our debtors report, page 108. Thank you, Garry, for this. Yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, through Philip. Yeah, the information's there. We've put a little bit more information in this time as well in terms of the older debt. And we're looking to build a sort of three-monthly trend in to analyse how that older debt is actually faring, which we'll talk to Philip about in due course.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for this report. I was a little bit surprised, and maybe we can do some more analysis. I was really quite surprised. We've got some debtors that are in the 5 to 10 year period, and considering normally after 7 years, the debt, you struggle to recover it from a legal perspective, and I just wonder whether we can have some indication on what the process are. Are those amounts really recoverable? If we could just
yes, certainly. I mean,
just for the next time. Yep.
Yep, sure. And we've also got a portion of that that's covered by bad debt provision anyway.
Yeah.
But they're at varying stages of processing in terms of recovery.
Yeah, I mean, you might have actually crystallised the debt because you've taken legal action, and therefore they're not actually technically statute barred. Mayor Phil.
Thank you, Chair. Page 111, the bar graph there. Why is it a timing thing or something? Why has that water outstanding amount gone so very high? I mean, it's a big jump from March 22 to from February to March.
Yeah, yeah, it is a timing issue, and it's just when the water billing was done. So it really is just a peak which will drop off in the next quarter.
Okay, thank you.
What I am pleased is on page 110, you look at where we were 12 months ago with 6.6 million compared with now 6 million. That's the trend line I want to see, is that we're actually trending down, not trending up.
Yeah.
Yep, we could keep that up, would be brilliant.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if we go back, any further questions? So we go back to page 108. I'm happy to move the recommendation. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Andy. Any further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Gets carried. Our capital works progress report. Thank you, Fiona, being in the hot seat.
I'm always in the hot seat. Just by way of introducing the report, really, this is the third progress report we've provided to the committee so far this year. Whilst progress has been very good with some projects, obviously COVID and other factors, contractor availability, material availability, have impacted on our progress with other projects. We have also had the stimulus funding projects added into our program this year, which added some 10 odd additional projects into the capital works program for the year. So no, we have not achieved or are not going to achieve probably what any of us wanted to see, but there are a number of factors that are playing impacting on our ability to do that. As far as staffing goes in our projects team, I think I do note at the beginning of the report somewhere, we have really struggled to obtain staff there. So Corbus van der Merwe retired as our projects manager in November last year. It wasn't until just last month that we confirmed someone into that role. Unfortunately, or fortunately for them, it was an internal promotion, which meant that we've actually just created another vacancy in the team. We have secured a senior projects engineer to take over that role, but again, that was an internal appointment. So we are now recruiting for 2 project engineers in that team at the moment. Now, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any Mayor Phil, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, I'm not happy that we're not going to achieve, but totally understand why we're not going to be achieving a lot of our projects. And I think under the current situation, I actually take my hat off to the team for what they are achieving with all the difficulties at the moment, procurement, staffing, the whole thing. It's pretty difficult. I do have a concern on page 119.33 as regard the possible roundabout at the corner of Fitzgerald Lane. I just don't understand the logic there. Obviously, from Waka Kotahi, they're talking about reducing speed limits all over the country. They've already done some, and that some of what they're proposing absolutely annoys me. But I'm actually really surprised and annoyed to see that they're looking at granting an 80-kilometre speed limit in that area, which there should be a short extension, and correct me if I'm wrong, Fiona, I'm probably talking even less than a kilometre, that they extend the 50k to allow that to be 50k at that roundabout, and then be able to build a suitable roundabout for a lot less cost, which obviously is going to be on us, the way I get it. I stand to be corrected on that one as well. What perhaps can we do about that? Because this sounds ridiculous to me. I'm not happy with that at all.
Yep, so there has been some progress with that. So unfortunately, Liam's left the meeting, but Liam and Wade did meet with Linda Stewart and one of her peers from Waka Kotahi, it must have been last week, I think, and sort of covered off the whole, because this is based on a planner somewhere in Waka Kotahi going, it doesn't fit our plan, so this is what you can't do it. So they've had that kind of more strategic conversation with Linda Stewart, and there's going to be a workshop of all the stakeholders, I think on the 24th and 25th of May, so that's not very far away. So there is some progress around Linda kind of understanding more of what we're trying to achieve there and how it may link into things like Road to Zero and the Hawaratini Plymouth Safety Improvements Program and things. So we're hoping that we've got them on board a bit better now.
Thank you, because that sounds like if they agree that some common sense is going to prevail. Thank you, Fiona.
Yeah. No worries.
Thank you, Chair. I've got Chris and then Andy. Thank you. Councillor Chris.
Through the chair, just query Fiona regarding the difficulty recruiting. Is just South Taranaki district, is that farm? Is it just that position?
Most engineering positions are very difficult to secure qualified staff in at the moment. So we've also lost a couple of strategic asset engineers. Partly it's Three Waters uncertainty. The 2 asset engineers have both cited that as part of the reason for leaving, not the entire reason. And I would suggest it's across the country. And I believe Marianne would say similar with IT roles, probably the other area that we're struggling to get good qualified staff into some of those roles as well.
I can concur that it is across the country. All the councils that I'm involved with do not have a full complement of staff. Some of them have got up to 25% vacancies.
Yeah.
Across
So
right across the whole council, and the biggest areas are assets planners due to government poaching in some respects.
Yeah, I totally agree with that comment, Chair. Government is paying apparently up to 30% more and taking these roles, and those are concerns that I really have over these three waters, and especially now with this no worse off or better off, whichever one it is. I lose track of those. Saying in there that if we accept that money, that they can also second our staff. I mean, those sort of things are going to be very challenging for councils across the country going forward.
And I agree, Phil, but just to clarify, none of our staff that have left have gone to government positions. Sorry, just so that currently is not a factor for South Taranaki. It could well become a factor, but not yet.
Thank you.
I've got Andy, then I've got Jack, and Chris, your hand is still up. Or do you want to have another? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Hey, you might have to correct me. It may not be the right place for me to mention this, but it's good that Wade is not here. I just have a concern. One of the KPIs for Wade is the infrastructure, getting that all done. I think that's unfair on Wade because of the inability of the council to be able to do all of the infrastructure. So maybe we should take that on board for the personnel committee. I don't know what to do, but it just seems to be.
I think that's a discussion for the personnel committee, but yes, to me is I think when you do it, you've got to consider the rationale, the reason for the non-achievement of CapEx. I'll circle back. Jack, you've got a comment?
Oh, just on through the chair, Fiona, any sort of decision on Te Ramanui as yet, or still waiting?
So the tender acceptance letter went out not last week, but late the week before. So as soon as we get that signed by the contractor, then we'll be able to make the appropriate announcements. There is a blessing scheduled for next Wednesday morning, which you should have received an invitation to.
Yeah, no, saw that. Yeah, thanks, Fiona.
Cool.
Thank you.
Councillor Garry.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. Fiona, just curious with the procurement of staff and accommodation. I mean, is there any possibility of, with people moving to the area, if we had some accommodation that was surplus to our requirements? I think we have an area where it probably is. Would that be beneficial in the terms of securing sort of staff to give them a short-term place to stay? We struggle.
So we have had one staff member leave citing their inability to find suitable accommodation for them in one case it was a single person, in another case I believe it was a family. So that has been a factor in some people's decisions. What our HR team have done in the past is where they have known there are issues, they have worked hard to help them secure appropriate accommodation. As far as council having something suitable, if you're referring to a couple of properties in Furlong Street, we are doing some investigation around that at the moment. But to bring those houses up to a standard that probably a professional and his or her family would be seeking would be quite costly. They are quite run down and do not currently meet the requirements of the Tenancy Act. But we are looking at it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And sorry,
Mm.
through the chair, just one other thing to highlight was that we have in paragraph 7 just talked briefly about some of the materials that are getting difficult to procure. I understand that the committee raised that last meeting for discussion, so happy to answer any questions around that as well.
Okay, thank you. I've actually, thank you. No, that's problematic across the country.
Yeah.
I think I do like, and I think we need to continue to update it, your risk profiles in terms of the way you've done it, particularly paragraph 12, 17, 22, etc. How you've actually broken the contract down into potentially three areas of risk. I think that's quite invaluable for the committee, and it'll be interesting to see if they actually, next time you do this, you say a little note to say what the previous risk was, so we can actually see whether the risk is going up or down. Would be useful.
Right. Yep.
Mayor Phil?
Yeah, just one. Fiona probably doesn't want this one, but could we just have an update on where we are hot off the press with Nukumara Station Road, or is there nothing hot off the press?
The hot off the press is that the papers were served on one day when I was away, so either Friday last week or Monday this week, to the landowner for the compulsory acquisition.
Okay, so that's perhaps good to know. We've moved to that other stage. Thank you for that.
Yes.
So supplementary question is, so how long is it before, how long have they got to then the process from there? Just remind me.
Philip, I haven't been at work, so I'm not entirely sure on the details, but I know that they can appeal the decision and things, so it can take up to 12 months if that happens.
So we're talking at least another 12. Yeah, potentially.
I just saw Chris's face.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah.
I guess the really good thing, though, if there is a really good thing, is that the lower portion of the road has been built. It is there. So if that bridge goes out or the road is flooded, that community now has a separate access to get out. So from a resilience perspective, we've achieved what we set out to achieve.
No, that's good. Thank you for that, Fiona. That's good news, although it's not entirely brilliant news.
Yes.
From a resilience perspective, but from the long-term objective, it's work in progress. Councillor Chris?
If we've got that road in place, can we not just open it then?
No, because the whole Environment Court decision was for the entire road. So until the entire road is built, so it's locked. It's there, and there's a lock, on a gate at each end, and it just means that you would only open it if needed. So, for example, in the February weather event, a very helpful, potentially local landowner opened the gate.
Right, thank you for that. Okay, any other questions on the Capital Works report? So if we go back, we have a recommendation on page 113. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Mayor Phil. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Chris. All those in favour, please say aye or hands. Aye. Carried. Aye. Next item, 6.3, page 123, our audit risk work plan. Details on page 124. And we've got our next meeting. Ahmed or Marianne, can we have this extended out for the remainder of the triennium at our next meeting, please?
The next meeting will have the whole, the next one as
The
well.
next one.
Like the
Yep.
whole next financial year.
Oh, the next financial year, thank you.
Through the chair, I mean.
Thank you. In terms of the insurance renewal program, I'm aware of three of my other audit and risk clients who have actually had a presentation from the broker, not necessarily in person, but in terms of what's actually happening in terms of insurance. And I wonder whether that might be useful for the committee members to actually understand where insurance is heading and what are the options. Just no decision needs to be made, but just something you might want to take on board. So we've got any questions on the work plan? There are none. Do I have a mover for the recommendation on page 123?
Councillor Rangiwahia.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Andy. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Carried. Can I have I'll move that we move to exclude the public. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Mayor Phil. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Those against, carried.
Aye.